panel of speakers which constitute academics, practitioners, entrepreneurs, community leaders, with those who cover from different perspectives the topic which we started at the University of Cambridge in March 2014. This is a series which would continue for the next 2 months. The next universities are University of Greenwich, London School of Economics, and Oxford University. Today is the second seminar of this series, in which we're going to look at how the young generation, those who are British Pakistanis, second and third generations, which we are academically, in fact, considering them as Generation Y and Generation Z, the kind of challenges they come across in the United Kingdom, and how we could, as Pakistani diaspora, support them in wading through those challenges. So the first speaker today is Sania Qureshi, who is a civil servant in the UK. She brings diverse and rich experience from NGO, from the civil service. At the same time, she is the one who is borderline in terms of Generation Y. So we are
think that's a bit generous, but
I'm just trying to be correct. So today we're going to start with Sania, and then we continue the dialogue. It's 7 to 8 minutes quick talk, and then questions would follow at the end of the conversation. Mm-hmm. So over to Sania.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Arif, and many thanks to WCOP for asking me to participate today and talk about a very worthy and topical sort of issue. I don't know if many of you are aware, but out of the 1.4 million Pakistanis we have in the UK, we have a growing number of Pakistani, Bangladeshi, but certainly Muslim kids who are increasingly getting on the wrong side of the law, and also performance-wise in schools and colleges is dropping at quite an alarming rate. So where Ofsted had done some surveys about 2 years ago in 2012, it was found that even sort of the Afro-Caribbean community, their children were surpassing sort of academic levels to where Pakistani and Bangladeshi kids were, who have gone down. So two very alarming changes certainly in the last 5 to 10 years. Our children, and I call them children because I'm on the wrong side of the Y, but certainly youngsters from the age of 16 to 24, which are the most vulnerable category, I believe, and certainly from a policy perspective, are more prone to drop out of colleges and school, certainly not meet university, but are the most vulnerable in society because they are often from communities that are ghettoized, communities where they don't have a peer-to-peer network, and they don't have those tools or facilities, and certainly even their parents may not, to help them, encourage them get back into a system. So we have children getting on the wrong side of the law, and if you can just imagine being in the UK, you're Muslim, you're brown, you have a criminal record. That is a level of barrier which, quite frankly, is quite alarming and doesn't help the fact that our youth that does have a talent, that does have aspirations, would ever meet those aspirations. So what do we do as a community? Certainly as a ex-policy professional, my background's government, we've done a lot of work on NEETs, which is, again, on that category, 16 to 24-year-olds who are not in education, employment, or training. And in the UK, across all communities, the NEET group has grown exponentially during the recession of certainly in the last 3-4 years, to almost, 750,000 individuals who in this country are not in education, employment, or training. Now, within that category, I'm not sure of the numbers, but I would fathom that there will be a large amount of Muslim youngsters in that. And I think collectively there's much we can do and should be doing to mobilize youth engagement, both from within our community, as well as our communities engaging with the mainstream. Both these things are missing. We don't have a community voice within our own. We don't engage our community, and often, I was speaking to colleague Nadia earlier, there is a reticence in engaging or understanding their rhetoric, understanding their needs. Who are they? We're now in our 4th generation British Pakistani here since the 60s. And 4th generation wise, we frankly shouldn't be facing these alarming challenges that we are as a community. And that doesn't go without saying that other communities may face them, but certainly in the current environment we're in, this is quite a sort of poignant time for our community. There is a lot of prejudice, there's a lot of anti-Pakistan Islamophobia, and these are facts of life. These are not challenges we need to directly battle. What we can take on is understanding our youth. What we can take on is lobbying and getting facilities and services that help support our youth. And frankly, I don't see any of that. And this is no criticism on the collective. I criticism on myself, maybe as a mother or an individual or someone who's been raised in the UK, maybe I should be doing more. But certainly from a policy angle, I've seen very alarming figures, and we need to be doing some sort of intervention that will help our youngsters. And whether that's engaging them in academics, whether that's youth enterprise, and this is something I'd asked Arif whether I could raise in our discussion today. Youth enterprise could mean a lot of things to different people, but it's bringing the kids back into a meaningful environment, whether they're being trained, whether they're apprenticeships, whether they're starting up businesses. As you can all agree, our community is very entrepreneurial. That's one thing we can put our money on. We know how to do business, we're hardworking, and at some level there is a little bit of help within the community. It's few and far between. We hope to see more of that, but it is there at a certain level. So how do we really push that out? How do we engage our youth into meaningful work, whether it's training, development, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's academics? Again, we want to see more PhD students. We want to see more people holding a master's degree and achieving, and it's doable. So sort of my question to myself and certainly to you all is, what are the tools we need to look at building or accessing to equip our youngsters? Because believe you me, and I'm by no way a pessimist. You can ask any of my friends, I'm hugely optimistic. But seeing the numbers I have seen, seeing the trends I have seen in our policy environment, this is seriously not good news. We need to do something to support our youth. And I'm speaking on their behalf. I'd like to hear their take on things, but certainly we need to really rally around and understand what are the tools that we can get together as a collective and individually. And it starts from home too, but certainly as a collective, we need to clearly understand what are the tools we need to access to equip our youth. We want to reverse those trends. There is no reason why we can't. We need to reverse those trends. So happy to take questions. Hope that was clear.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
With your permission, Arif. First of all, my question is, who are we targeting this message to? That's my question number one.
Yeah.
Once you give me the answer, and I've got a second question to follow up.
Sure, okay. So I'll give you an example. David Cameron, I think it was last year, set up a 200 million social enterprise or youth enterprise fund. And very interestingly, he picked someone to become the poster boy for it. It was James Caan. I'm, to an extent, a fan of James Caan. I think he's done very well, but I don't think he's representative of the community. So I would ask David Cameron, have you been to the community? Do you understand what the entrepreneurial spirit is? Who are the community leaders that need to be in there advocating that and creating access to that fund? That fund is important to us, and it should be understood by us, but there's no connect. So that happens again and again. And whether, whatever government, I'm not saying Tories are good or bad, whatever government comes and goes, they create a kind of a hoo-ha around an initiative, roll out a poster boy or girl, thank you very much, cut the ribbon, and Bob's your uncle. But for us, it's no longer a case of that is not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. So what we need to know is that we have to have the right advocates in there to say, look, you've got a £2 million, 200 million fund. How can our community access it? Where are those people asking those questions of government? And I was just saying to Nadia earlier as well, I have British American colleagues, and they were saying to me, Sanya, 1.4 million Pakistanis in this country. The amount of representation we have in government today here, peers, councillors, MPs, Where is our lobby? Where is your lobby? Zero. We have zero collateral there. With the numbers of representation we have, we should be saying to government, not asking them, saying to them, how are you helping us facilitate access to this fund? I have X number of kids up in Leeds or Manchester or Glasgow who have basic training, who have ideas, who are entrepreneurial. They have no access to funds.
Yes, thank you very much, Sonia. But my real question is
Yeah.
that we have to walk the talk. I think you should be addressing to O generation, which is my older generation, rather than Y generation,
Yeah.
because we need to bring all the infrastructure that we have built and the resources that we have paid towards
Yeah.
over 4 generations, as you
Yes.
quite rightly said.
Yes. Yeah.
Now we have everything in place, on the ground. Now, the tools you talked about, we're looking for those tools. And I think that is what we really require. How do we engage them? And once we walk the talk, Prime Minister will walk to us.
Yeah.
Because he will see 1.4 million people would have
Yeah, they have a voice. And
Sonia is quite right, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We have representative in the House of Lords and Parliament House and in the government, but there's no connection. We are missing connection, That's what we are educating, We are putting these efforts to educate our youngsters and try to make some sort of connection,
Yeah, yeah. And 2015 is a big year for this government and for the country. There's general elections. And I say to both Generation Y and Generation O, you have to put forward your ask now.
Yeah.
And if you have, if there's any opportunity for a listening ear, it's now.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your presence, Sonia.
Thank you. Sorry.
Quite pertinent questions Sonia raised, and yes, we have very good presence in the House of Lords and the House of Commons. In local councils, we have 277 councillors from Pakistan, even 29 mayors throughout the United Kingdom, with 7 MPs, 5 in the House of Lords. So numbers are pretty good. But at the same time, the question is, do we have a lobby, or are these people representing the community? So that's one good question, which will roll on to the next speakers. At the same time, one comment from Tariq Chaudhry, who in fact raised who brought this perspective that in fact, who are we communicating to? Yes, so we are going to set up a dialogue. In fact, it's just setting up a bridge between the older generation and the Generation Y, so that both of these generations could give each other a leg up and resolve wherever we have some conflicts, and there are pretty many in fact, so that's why we have 2 or 3 representatives from the Generation Y as well, who would share the kind of concerns they have. Now the next speaker is Generation Y representative. We have Sher Ali, who is by profession a chartered accountant, and he's going to share how his generation feels about the kind of challenges and questions we face, and what we could do to resolve those challenges and give them support. So over to Sher Ali.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wasn't planning to speak for long. It's hot, and there's a lot of passionate people here. Clearly, if you're here on a Friday night at 6 o'clock, you've given up quite a lot to be here. And that environment usually does nurture explosions, so I don't want to offend anyone by anything I say. But I mean, prior to the starting off, I mean, I heard a lot of negative things being said about my country and my people, our country, and it's, for me personally, it's very good to be aware of what's wrong around you. But I mean, are you not being more successful? I mean, you're giving the success to the people who initially brought out the negativity. They want you. It's like dropping a penny in a pond. They want you to spread it. Now, for me personally, okay, highlight what's bad, but there's no point highlighting the bad if post-diagnosis you're not going to offer the treatment. But at the end of the day, we're here. We left our country for a better life, or for whatever reason we left. But we don't give ourselves enough credit. I mean, I urge everyone to go home tonight and might sound a bit funny, but go and look in your kitchen wardrobe. How many spices we have. And the next time you go out for dinner, all you'll find is salt and pepper, if you're lucky. Or maybe a bottle of ketchup. Beyond that, I mean, our languages. Now you're processing whatever I'm discussing, whatever we're discussing in 2 languages. At the same rate somebody else would be knowing just English alone. We're better equipped to learn things quickly. We're better equipped to get on with things more quickly. I mean, if somebody else was inviting you to, or you wanted to invite somebody else to your country, I mean, how much more richness, vibrancy, color would you want from a person? But my main point that I wanted to raise today is that I'm desperately urging Generation Y and X, if it's still out there, to mentor my generation, and I specifically use the word mentor on purpose, to help us carry our identity into the future. We're no longer living in Pakistan. I'm living here, I don't know whether I'm going to marry a Pakistani. I don't know whether I'm going to move on from here and maybe work in Africa. Beyond that, the one main challenge I feel my generation is facing day in, day out is there's a stark difference between modernization and westernization. It's black and white. You do draw the line on where you want to dilute your identity, but even where we draw our line, I mean, it's up to every individual family. You excel, or you change, or you accommodate change, or you evolve at your own rate for what you're comfortable with. But it's not something my generation is, I personally, well equipped enough to carry out that task. So hopefully you can go home tonight and think about that and help us carry your name, carry our country's name forward wherever we go, in a positive light. And that's what I had to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shirali. Yes, it's a very engaging perspective that the Generation Y or Generation X, particularly those who were born and brought up over here, they have different priorities now. And it's an important concept to look at, that things that moved on, and now this generation would have different priorities, and in terms of their cultural and religious roles, there are lots of gray areas which they're struggling with and they're going to get to grips with. Now, we have the next speaker, but before we go to the next speaker, I must acknowledge 2 things. Today we are hosted by Sayyida Sultana Rizvi at the University of Westminster, who is a PhD candidate at the university and is conducting research relevant to the media and diaspora. We are grateful for organizing this particular event. At the same time, credits to TVapex, which is covering this particular event live. So all of you are being broadcasted live to the rest of the world right now, and there are viewers who are sending us questions. Those questions would be shared with the audience as we progress through the seminar. Now, the next speaker is one who, yes, before I forget, just 2 more credits. We have our Board of Governors and General Secretary Majid Chaudhry Sahab, who's joined us today. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Najib Khan will join us today, and Sajid Atta Khan will join us today, and Tariq Chaudhry will join us today. So big hand to all of those who are joining us today. The next speaker is one. She wasn't brought up over here, but she somehow, once again, is a borderline case in terms of Generation Y. She traveled to the UK, and she was a high achiever in Pakistan as well. So she brings a different perspective, the kind of challenges she faced over here, and we invite Hina Malik to share her point. So give her a big hand.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and honorable guest here. My name is Zina Malik. I'm grateful to WCOP, World Congress Overseas Pakistani, for giving me this forum to speak out and share my life experiences or my views about today's topic, which is opportunities and challenges for the British Pakistani youth in UK. I want to start by sharing a young girl's dream who wanted to be something different in her life, to make a mark and to be recognized as an intellectual, and would not accept the cultural, social, gender barriers that were surrounding her. This Pakistani young girl came from an upper class family where most of the family members were associated to be either politicians or were in armed forces. So she had access to people from Air Force, and she got inspired by the aeroplanes and the Air Force guys. She asked a question from one of her uncles, and she says, how can I be part of this, part of aeroplanes? Because she wanted to do that. And the reply was, the closest you will ever get to the aeroplane is to marry an Air Force guy. This was the perception in Pakistan about women, where they were. At the time, there was no aeronautical engineering offered to Pakistani women. It was only offered through Air Force to the young male recruits. So this is why he suggested if you want to be part of aeronautics, you need to be marrying one. She did not understand this gender inequality, but had to deal with it. However, a few years later, the whole family moved to London and settled there. As an Asian immigrant in this country back in late 80s, she didn't just have to go through the cultural shock and the feeling of being vulnerable and isolated, but also soon realized it was not easy to integrate and be socially accepted by the community, and felt that the process of integration was very difficult. She was able to face these challenges, though, and moved on. However, all this did not stop her from pursuing her dreams. Once again, she asked a question from her A-level lecturer, can I be an aeronautical engineer? And this time the reply was, what is stopping you? This was the thought that passed on into her, and she asked herself times and times again, what is stopping me? This is a different perception in this country about you achieving your dreams. Academically, she qualified as an H&D in aerospace engineering. Being the top student in 3 years, she was presented a George Smith Award, which is like she acquired 19 distinction out of 21 possible. This was highlighted in the media, and it was passed on into Pakistan as well. She carried on doing her aeronautical engineer bachelor's honors from the top University of Aeronautics and Medicine, Imperial College. And then, because this was highlighted in the media so much that she was the first Pakistani aeronautical engineer in the local media and in Pakistan, she was invited by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Benazir Bhutto, to start her career in Pakistan. She joined PIA as a planning engineer and worked there for a couple of years, looking after General Electric's NECMA and Boeing projects. She came back and she worked as a supply chain manager, British Airways. She then moved on. There were challenges in her life. She had to change, and she became a qualified teacher and offered her outstanding practitioner's job as a teacher in one of the local schools. Life moved on again. There were more challenges in her life, and she just carried on working hard. And now, I would say that she is recognized within the local Pakistani community as an entrepreneur, a successful media personality, a PR personality, and event organizer. Currently, she's actively involved in local and Pakistan's politics, women empowerment projects, community and social work. In terms of local politics, supports Labour Party, and I hope it comes in the next government, by organizing events and recruiting members for the Labour Party 1000 Club. She was awarded as a successful personality of the year 2013 from one of the magazines. How did she achieve all this? This was all achieved by overcoming the social, the cultural, the economical, and the gender barriers, and availing the opportunities that were there at the time. Accepting the challenges, facing the obstacle and difficulties, overcoming these by sheer perseverance, determination and focusing on your own set goals. At times, learning from your own failures and moving on, and by concentrating on the positives. Ladies and gentlemen, this girl going through the journey of life, this woman is in front of you today. And this was Hina Malik's dream. This is me in front of you. I believe my today is far better than yesterday because I chose to shape my own future the way I wanted it. Today we talk about one nation and integrated society. The society here is much more acceptable, not in those days. And it's more embracing. It values the strength of diversity, gender equality, and community cohesion. There is more awareness in terms of social issues and possible solutions. Different forums are available, like one today, to have open dialogues, to facilitate diverse views and opinions, and to address matters which are very close to your own heart. You have more opportunities to flourish and excel, and less challenges to face. But remember, it is only you who will decide your own path and will chase your own dreams. I wish you all every success. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, if there are any questions, we could reserve them till the end, and then we could have the Q&A session as well. Hina represents, she was sharing a case study of a girl who was a borderline Generation Y girl, but who managed to make it big in this country, and she is still she is still a fellow traveler, in fact. So from that angle, we would share two more case studies. We have another friend who is a member of WCOP. At the same time, he is a hardcore professional, and he represents Pakistan at a few of the most prestigious places in this country. He is a highly well-known professional fashion designer, and he's highly respected for his craft. We have Omar Mansoor among us, who is going to once again share his side of the story. Give him a big hand.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thanks for inviting me, giving me a chance for the first time to speak. I'm not used to speaking to conferences before ever. Yeah, I do write a press release and the PR companies spreads it usually. So yes, when I came here, luckily I came from background where there was no obstacles for a man to start up a women's wear business, because I was coming from textile background, and parents were supportive, relatives were supportive. But I found over here that the Pakistani community, unfortunately living in this country, the so-called Westerners, were not supportive. They were having issue. You are Muslim trying to do non-Muslim clothes, and there's a certain tahrir, I won't name them full, but everyone knows. Their members approaching me to come and join their meetings and attend them, and once I was even invited and I gave them a proper answer, and they didn't have any answer and asked me to leave. So yes, that's the first image of British Pakistani community was on me by attending a certain tahrir meeting. So yeah, when I started, I was studying at London College of Fashion, and my teacher says, why your sketches are always a bit messy, why these dots are on that? I said, they are embellishments. Okay, what kind of embellishments? I said, they're embroideries. He said, show me some samples. I showed him. He says, why don't you start doing them, and I'll try to push you for London Fashion Week. And then he tried his contacts at British Fashion Council, found out that till that day none of the Pakistani ever asked him to participate, so there wasn't any Pakistani who has representative the country. So when I went to the British Fashion Council chairperson at that time, she asked me, so did you learn fashion from India, or how do Pakistani people follow the fashion? Do they see it from across the board? This was the kind of image I was shocked at, and I told her that we are very rich in culture, fabrics, embroideries, colors. But she was like a bit reluctant to believe me, but I can see it from her face. So yeah, then the fashion week was done, another fashion week was done, then I was suggested to do a show for Royal Ascot, where her Majesty Queen was present, and at the end when I came to bow, they mentioned a designer all the way from Pakistan. So I thought representing myself or my label wasn't that big thing, but representing a community which is never ever representing fashion was a very big deal. So at that time I realized, yes, it means a lot, and from now on it's not just a women's who label, but where I'm coming from, Pakistan is a bigger label which I have to represent. And then when this government took over, luckily Samantha Cameron was very, I won't call her Majesty, Her Excellency, whatever, I call her Samantha whenever we communicate with her. So yeah, she was the representative for Fashion Council, and she invited us once for a fashion parade out on the Downing Street, walking all the way from the gate to the end. So, and again she was shocked to ask me, okay, from which part of India you are from? And I said, no, I'm from the Pakistan part of India. So she laughed at it, and she was shocked that none of the designers she ever met before, who is actually living over here, she was well aware that there are designers back home, there must be some. But then her response was, and how's the community response over back home? I said, I'm very much satisfied from back home, but over here it will take some time. So I think we should be hopeful about it, and as Ali Sheikh said, that we should be looking at the bright side, and I see things very bright in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure broadcasting Omar, in fact, who was the first Pakistani designer to join London Fashion Week, and at the same time making all of us proud of Pakistan and his achievements. Now we proceed ahead, and this time we'll be looking at this entire debate from an academic angle. There are different theories when we speak about diaspora, and when Shirley said that yes, for whatever reason we left the country, and the most prevalent one was economic reason to leave the country in search of greener pastures. Now there are academics and researchers who are looking into this particular perspective from different angles, and they are looking into identity, integration, and the relevant prospects as well. We have with us the next speaker, who is coming from an academic background, who would be looking at this entire question from a theoretical perspective. And we have Muhammad Rizwan, who is an associate professor at a Pakistani university and doing his PhD at Middlesex University. So let's give him a big hand.
Hi everyone. Arif, though I started preparing a very academic discussion for this forum, but while listening to all people here, they were talking very frank and they were talking real heart actually. So I decided to talk about my heart in a way. I'm a person who came to this country for studies, and my sole objective is to study and go back. So I always look into things, whatever happened here, from a sojourner, a traveler's point of view. Though I have people who, I come across people, I have some friends who live here and they're settled here for 2-3 generations. And sometimes when I look at them, I just realize one very theoretical notion someone put forward in an academic paper about Mexicans, that Mexicans in America are more Mexicans than Mexicans in Mexico. Though it is a bit weird to talk. So I realized maybe it's true when I go back, because of my assignment, my trip to Pakistan are quite often. Part of my family is there, my wife is here, but she misses family very regularly, so she visits Pakistan very often, and we talk whatever happens in Pakistan and how things are happening over there. In a recent trip to Pakistan, I come from Multan, which is a very small town, not that small town, but considered very conservative town in a way. But she said, when I went there, I'm a Londoner for last 4 years, and I felt quite desi and pendu while being in Pakistan, because people are more, in a way, fashionable, and they are more
Advanced.
They're more advanced. And though there are other side of the scene as well, people are more conservative, people are becoming, we have one view which we see through our window of TV, that people are very religious, but the media something which media doesn't show one thing, the people are very liberal as well at the same time, and probably they are more liberal than Pakistanis here. One of my friend who lives in Newcastle, and he was talking to me like last week. His wife is she dresses up like Pakistanis in Pakistan, and he says that I have a feeling that my wife looks more like a Sikh, not Pakistani, because of her attire. She wears simple salwar kameez, not the scarf thing, and without scarf you don't look Muslim. Mostly for many people you are not Muslim, particularly for women. You without scarf you can be Indian, you can be Sikh or any other community from South Asia, not Pakistani. And that's what kind of my part of discussion is like identity. We are always talking about identity. For Generation Y, we talk about identity crisis, but somehow my concern is why we have developed a discourse that supports only a singular classification of identity, that we can be either Muslim or Muslim Pakistani or British Pakistani. So our identity classification is just based upon a religion or a particular ethnic background, not more than that. Though identity goes far more further than just ethnic or religious background. We have seen that identity developed around culture or ethnicity or religious background has created lots of violence in the world, even in recent times. By being Hutu in Rwanda means you are supposed to kill Tutsis. If you are a Serb in Yugoslavia, you are enemy of Muslim, or vice versa. So ethnicity is my idea is that there should be a discourse that should be developed for the Y generation, that identities go beyond the religious or ethnic background. You can be a football lover, you can be an accountant, you can be a fashion designer. At the same time, you can be British Pakistani, you can be sports lover, you can be person who loves traveling. You can wear lots of identities at the same time. Identity has become more like, in Western thoughts, identities have become more like a piece of cloth which you can wear and which you can wear off. You can wear another identity. So identity my idea is identity should go beyond just ethnic or religious identity, and Generation Y should be exposed to other forms of identity as well. In the discussion here, we know the Pakistani people, the diaspora children here, they are not performing very high in academics. Though I'm an academician, I do part of teaching in Middlesex University as well, where I come across mostly those international Pakistani students. There are very few British Pakistani students who are studying there. Their achievements are low. They are school level. There are so many school or university leavers, but I don't know if someone has asked them what is happening in their life. I participate here in different diaspora groups. One is WCOP, and there are so many others. I always listen to British friend, conservative friend of Pakistan, Labour Friends of Pakistan, UK Pakistan Chamber of Commerce, and some similar Doctors Association of Pakistan, Accountants of Pakistan. But children from Pakistani diaspora, do they participate somewhere or do they interact somewhere? I always believe when we come here as an immigrant, we bring our cultural baggage, and we always keep that cultural baggage with us. We look very happy when our children make choices in their life, because when they go to school, the school system here teaches children liberty, independence, freedom of choice. But I don't know, when it comes to the biggest decision of their life, the parents take the control. The most important decision, not only one. I'm not talking about marriage only. I'm talking about every important decision when they're taking. The freedom is taken away, and somehow my realization is somewhere the baggage is transferred to their children, and when they grow up, they want their children to behave in the same way. So my idea is there should be a discourse that should go beyond one particular identity for our Generation Y. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we could have some questions to this one because Rizwan raises quite important questions in terms of singular identity. If we are only Muslims and Pakistanis, then what would happen if you are a Christian and you're a Pakistani? At the same time, a very intriguing perspective, whether that Mexicans in the United States are more Mexican than those Mexicans who are in Mexico, and that Pakistanis who are in the UK are more Pakistanis compared to those Pakistanis who are in Pakistan. So we already have a question, and this is from Homa. She's from London, and she says, how to prevent identity crisis in British Pakistanis? What steps should Pakistani families living abroad should take to ensure their children do not lose out their actual identity as a Pakistani national? So I think, once again,
I'm a bit confused. Identity is either just wearing, I'm wearing since I'm here, back home as well, so wearing suit every day. So my identity is just a wearing, But my every act showing my identity, who I am, where I am, what origin I am.
So apart from Homa and Shah Saab's observation, if anyone else has an observation, particularly do share so that we can have this exchange for only a few minutes and then we move on.
If I can say something, I believe Rizwan is very right in whatever he has stated. I have lived here for a lot of years now. I have realized over the years there's one simple formula, right? And I'm not answering the direct question of the young lady, I think it was Huma, but what I would say basically, the problem is there's a simple rule. In our families, laborer's son or daughter will tend to labor, right? Similarly, somebody who is educated, for example, a doctor, their children will tend to become, because they follow their ideal, and their ideal is their father. It's very simple. Now, what happened to us Pakistanis in the UK was that most of us came in the time of Ayub Khan, when there were two regions. In West Pakistan, we had made poor people were displaced because of the dam construction. And people from East Pakistan, whenever it was East Pakistan, that was the area of Sylhet. Unfortunately, those two areas were quite backward and retarded. Right? No disrespect to those people who live there or who've come from there. But what I'm trying to say is that education was scarce in those parts of Pakistan. And when we come here, the same people, we tend, if I become a taxi driver, I would say, okay, let's buy a hacking carriage. I will do 12-hour shift. Then my son will do the other 12-hour shift. Do you know where I'm coming from? But if I was, for example, I'll give you my example. I'm a solicitor by profession. My children, my son wants to be a solicitor, my daughter wants to be a doctor, and blah, 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 right? My son is an architect already, okay? But what I'm trying to say is that we as parents, and this is the crucial point, we as parents have the biggest responsibility. We have to guide our children.
Yes.
We have to put ourselves out of the way. And don't forget, I've always stated this to my friends, my children, that look, being Pakistanis, being non-white, we have to work twice as hard as our Gora friends, right? Whether we like it or not, we can't do anything about it, but there is a lot of racism still. Although I've seen here, because I've been here since the 1970s, I have seen a lot of progress, right? People have changed dramatically. They have changed quite a lot. Barack Obama is now the president of USA. A lot of things can change. But I think what we as parents have to do is we have to push our children. And if we push our children, I think it will make a difference. As Rizwan mentioned, that people in the universities in this country are mainly from overseas, from Pakistan. Not our children, the British-born children are not. And that's the big thing. That's a very, very crucial point Rizwan's pointed out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much for your comments. So we need a quick answer from Rizwan and move on.
I thought it was more like a comment than an answer. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
It's really, really interesting. Thank you very much. I'm really impressed by what you've shared. And and I'd really like to thank you on behalf of representing all the Christians from Pakistan. And the question that you've raised, whether we should be called Muslim Pakistanis, British Muslims or British Pakistanis, is very crucial. And I really like the idea that identity, as you said, is a cluster idea rather than a mono idea concept. So I really welcome that in that, because the problems we are facing that in Pakistan, the basis of our nationality is the religion, whereas as we move to West, the basis is color. So we don't fit anywhere.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I really also like the idea that Shirley, if I'm pronouncing your name right.
Shirley,
Okay, well,
Shirley.
so that you said that there is a difference in westernization and modernization. So how could we really integrate more Pakistanis into this culture? Because I have a chance to teach people who want to apply for their citizenship. However, they do not like to learn the language, and they always find some shortcuts to pass the English test rather than really learning English, the language, and that's the biggest tool to really integrate into society. So what steps should be there and what levels? Thanks.
Thank you, Esther.
Yeah. What you said, it's quite interesting. When I came here back 2010, when I went to my GP gave me a form. Form includes, they call ethnic diversity form. And my details, and one part was ethnic diversity, who I am. Pakistani, British Pakistani. I had to choose one. So I was told that not only airport thing. I'm not talking about what happened to people when they are on airports. So British Pakistani. When I started, maybe it is because of medical reasons, being Pakistani or having a particular ethnic background, I may be more prone to some particular diseases. That's fine. But when I started teaching in university here, again, part of form was ethnic diversity, and again I was asked about my ethnicity. It was very, very early when because I started teaching, I would say, the first day when I came here. I don't know, someone was waiting for me to come here and teach, though it was never in plan. So everywhere we are asked about what ethnic background we have. I don't know about what national policy they have about this thing. Why it is always popped up again and again, and particularly, well, I'm Pakistani. I hold the same passport, and I always think about going back. But I don't know, those people, the generation Y, who is like third generation British, they're always asked about something, and our failures many times, whenever we are rejected somewhere, maybe in an interview, we have to blame someone, and the easiest blame is blaming that tick box where I ticked that, well, they asked me who I am, and I'm Pakistani, and I was rejected based upon racial reason. We are not rational when we are reasoning all the time. We cannot easily take blame that my performance was not good in the interview. We'd always blame racism, or many times people blame racism. I don't know what national policy they have. My question.
We'll ask them next time.
To have this ethnic diversity form, and why it pops up again and again. And the other part of your question is like ethnicity based upon religiosity, or identity based upon religious or a particular religious or ethnic identification is quite questionable for me. Ethnicities, identities can be more neutral, or I don't know, like non-religious things or non-cultural things.
Thank you, Rizwan.
Thank you.
So we just move ahead, and then certainly we have more time for Q&A.
Thank you, Mark.
We'll continue the dialogue. The next speaker we are inviting, there's one practitioner, and then another one who is an academic researcher. Sayyida Sultana Rizvi, who is our host today at University of Westminster, she's going to speak particularly relevant to media and how media presents Pakistani diaspora in the United Kingdom and how it affects representation.
Yes, like all of the speakers, I might not be sticking to what I thought I would be speaking about. I have been working with young Pakistanis in last 3-4 months. I have been with them. I had been interviewing them, running focus groups with them, and it like brings me up. Some of the experiences were very good, very encouraging, but some of the experiences were like very painful because I sometimes got to hear answers like that. When we go to Pakistan, they say you are British. When we are here, they say you are Pakistani. So what is our identity? We are neither British nor Pakistanis, although I tried to say that you are both, but for them it is a very painful experience to be seen as neither Pakistanis or nor British. But again, as I said, that there are very encouraging experiences as well. Like when I discussed with young people, they are resolving their issues very amicably and they are dealing with their issues very sensibly. And at this point, I feel that we, as all the previous generation, they actually need to do something very solid for this young generation, which is under tremendous stress of their identity, conflict in their identity, and being the pressures of getting integrated. You know, Pakistanis, mostly being Muslims, they have their identity conflict has shifted from one of being identity crises or conflicts on the basis of racism, or it was now shifting towards more of a security issue, like they are being seen as security threat, particularly the male young people. So there are lots of issues that need to be resolved. A lot of communication has to take place, and our media has to play a very, very big role in telling younger Pakistani generation about their achievements, about their strengths. There are so many strengths in younger Pakistani people. Those who are living here, those who are living in Pakistan, those who come here for studies. And I have come across, like, I am actually now contemplating too that we need to revisit the perspectives which are being built around Pakistanis, because most of the young people I interviewed or I came across, they are going to universities, and I asked about their friends. They are now going to universities, and we are being like made to believe that Pakistanis are low achievers, which is, I don't think is a case. Like, even you find many white people whose children are not going to schools, particularly those who are not coming from very wealthy classes. You see this problem even in young white population also. So it's not, you know, we have to like revisit many things. And actually what I feel that we have to take very, very concrete steps. A lot of discussions go around, but what are the legacies of these discussions? I mean, bodies of Pakistani professionals or educationists, they really will have to work around younger people. I mean, I hardly see in any mosque any programs for uplifting younger people in mathematics or science subjects. My son, he is a class fellow who is Chinese, and he said that he's very good at mathematics. So I said that Chinese are usually good at mathematics. So, but he said that on every Saturday and Sunday he goes to their community center where they teach them mathematics. Though being strong in mathematics, their communities are working, they are investing on their younger generations. All we see in our mosques is, I don't know, I may be wrong, but I have not seen any education programs being run to, bring up your own children to help them in subjects they are struggling with. I mean, you could ask people, there would be thousands of volunteers. I volunteer. I teach younger children mathematics and science subjects, but it's through a British charity. They advertised that we need volunteers to teach children with asylum seeker backgrounds, and I volunteered myself. Though it's very less that I'm doing, it's just 1 hour a week, but we can find lots of volunteers who can help younger children. And that's where we need to help these younger people who are under tremendous stress, that they are struggling with their identities, they are struggling with their jobs. I don't see very many Pakistani bodies or forums which are helping younger children, younger population, youth to become entrepreneurs. They need just a little bit of help. You see that Pakistanis have achieved so much in this country, from rags to riches. Their stories which are full of Pakistanis they're good in entrepreneurship, they are good in business, but you need to help your younger generation in coming up. We cannot leave them just like that to struggle on their own for finding answers to everything, because they have I was so happy to meet young Pakistani children that youth is full of love for Pakistan, and similarly they also think about Britain. They want to contribute towards Britain. They feel like doing something for British society. They feel like doing something for Pakistan also. They have to do so much. They are just not thinking of one country. They are thinking of 2 countries, and they feel responsible. They're so responsible, and I feel so happy, and I feel so unfortunate at this stage that I should have mingled more with our younger people when I was serving here at the High Commission. Though my work was not with community, I was with press, but we need actually to communicate to them, and our media has a very big responsibility, because most of the Pakistani younger people, they complained to me that they said that, oh, look what our media is showing. Our media is showing in such a bad light. You talk of British media, that's not important for us. There is Geo or ARY or whatever channel which is always running in our home, and we are seeing very negative picture about Pakistan. And when we go there, we find that this country is very fine. It's a beautiful place to go. So I don't know. We have to really think of some concrete steps, and organizations like WCOP, probably we should start something very concrete about these things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rizvi. Thank you very much. I think quite thoughtful comments about media, about identity, and how the Generation Y particularly looks at Pakistan and their identity. The next speaker is the one who could be considered an epitome of Generation Y. She was born and brought up in this country, and she was quite a high achiever. She managed to become the youngest female councillor from the diaspora. And I'm talking about Rabia Bhatti, who is graduating from the university. We're grateful she found time from exams and an important meeting to join us. So we expect her to particularly shed light how she managed to fight against the odds, what she was faced when she was growing up, and how she plans to make a difference.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum, good evening ladies and gentlemen. Now, as a woman and as a politician, I will be sticking to my notes, otherwise you'll be here for the rest of the evening. I'd like to begin my address by first thanking WCOP for once again bringing us here on this wonderful evening to join in discussing some matters which are exceptionally important and incredibly important and close to my own heart. But first I'd like to begin by talking about an incident that I am sure many of you are aware of. An incident that has had a profound impact upon the global fabric of our societies. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, I am talking about the kidnapping of hundreds of young girls in Nigeria by terrorist organization Boko Haram. Now, some of you may be wondering why I've chosen to speak about this issue, with Nigeria being so far away from both Britain and Pakistan. I speak on it due to the significance it holds to us here today. It reflects on a point we seldom talk about in the news or mainstream society. Indeed, it reflects a point that more than the military intervention or drone attacks, what the evil in our communities fear the most is the education of our young people. It is the education of the masses and the education of Generation Y. It highlights the blessing, and indeed I use the word blessing, that we overlook when talking about challenges and issues. It highlights the fact that the biggest weapon of young people is the ability to learn, act, react, and build. No man, woman, or child should be subject to racial or religious discrimination in this country or in our home country. We must ensure that each and every young person is not denied this fundamental opportunity to be a forceful catalyst of change. It is only this one value that will ensure that Generation Y will never suffer at the hands of dictatorships or oppressions again. Indeed, today's elections in India, where Narendra Modi is winning, will have a profound impact on the future of religious harmony and tolerance in that country. And it is only through this tool of enlightened learning can we unite to eradicate the fundamental issues that Generation Y faces both here and in Southeast Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, Generation Y is strong. It has a voice, it has a platform, and it is full of diverse individuals with colourful ideas and innovations. This country is a land of opportunity, and I urge each and every one of you here tonight to carry a social responsibility upon your shoulders. I urge you all to reach out and carry the torch of education, of human rights and community cohesion, to be symbols of not only strength, but encouragement for young people in Britain, in Pakistan, and the wider world. But more than that, I ask each and every one of you here tonight to be role models and mentors to ensure a robust, strong-minded generation emerges, which is proud of both their culture, their heritage, but the achievements that this nation has afforded them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabia. And while following the similar league, we have another name, Saba with us. Saba Masih, in fact, she would be speaking and bringing on some of the perspective which particularly relates to her community. Esther, when she was commenting and questioning, she brought a perspective, and we request Saba Masih to share about her perspective. She works in financial services and comes from St. Andrews University, and look forward to listening to her.
Thank you so much for that introduction. It's actually St Andrew's Church, but no problem at all. This is my first time attending one of these talks, so I do apologise if I do go a little bit off topic, but I'll try and stick to the subject at hand. It is such a wide topic. There's so many things you can say, so many different views and wonderful opinions we've heard, so important as well. First, I want to thank Saida. She's actually the person who invited me here today, and I do wish you all the best in all your research. Like you said, my name is Saba. I'm actually a Christian, a Pakistani Christian. I was born and raised in this country, but I do have a good understanding of things that go on back home as well. Obviously, my parents, stay in touch with their families, and you hear all the time, obviously, things going on in the news, etc. So I don't know if this is a surprise for many of you that I'm a Christian. I do still come across people from all walks of life. And they're still surprised, like, what do you mean? You're Pakistani, you're Christian? No, you must be a Muslim. I'm like, no, I'm quite sure I'm a Christian. Yeah, we are a minority, of course, in this country and back home in Pakistan. But I do believe that we are slowly but surely making a positive impact in our local communities as Christians, regardless of what religion we are. Whether you're helping Christians, Muslims, we're all one race, one community. I do want to say that as a minority, we are blessed in this country as Asian Christians. We don't really face any real, discrimination or persecution. I could honestly say that. I go to church. I've never had any threats going to church or any problems at all. And I find that such a big blessing that I'm in this country and I can do that. Instead, actually, we've been provided with the opportunity to excel in this country. There's so many learning opportunities to go to university. Education is free. There's so many things that I'm really grateful for. And, I've never found discrimination. I know everyone's experiences are different, but I've never felt that there was any discrimination because I was a Pakistani or even that I was a Christian growing up. But I think that depends what area you come from, what community as well. And a lot of the people that I work with as well, they've been able to succeed and prosper, so both in their academic pursuits and their career aspirations because of the opportunities that this country has provided. I think all of them would honestly say that they feel so blessed being Pakistani Christians in this country. Not saying that they wouldn't have been as blessed in Pakistan, but there is so much freedom here, so much that the UK does provide for us, and a lot that we are grateful for, the opportunities that our parents perhaps didn't get growing up back home in Pakistan. In particular, I would like to say that the girls of the Pakistani community, I find that in the Muslim community as well as Christian community, seem to be really flourishing. They have really high aims, objectives to become, big aspirations to become, people that they want to be in the future. For the boys, some of them have that aspiration, not all of them, but a lot of the girls have done really well. They've attained their degrees, they're now in good jobs, where they wanted to be, and a lot of that has been possible because they were in this country, because for some of those girls that might not have been possible back home because of the discrimination they would have faced, not just being girls, but being Christian girls as well. I would say that British Pakistanis who've been brought up in this country, their upbringing has been very, very different had they been back home. So obviously we have this culture, the Western culture that we see here, the society trends of the Western world. We are heavily influenced, I would say, being young Pakistani Christians in this country. This has been a positive influence, I would say. In many things we have like free thinking. We learn to accept people of all backgrounds, regardless of race, colour, religion. This country does encourage that. We live in London, one of the most multicultural places in the world, in fact. So it does encourage that. Free education for all, one of the greatest things that we have in this country. Even America doesn't have that. You have to pay for everything there. Even go to hospital for education. So that's really been a blessing for everyone. This has improved our lives, our standard of living, and I really feel that we've been enriched by all that. However, I wouldn't say that it's been all good. At the other end, there are young people who've adopted lesser values, I would say. For example, they've moved away from those sort of homely cultural values that we have back home in Pakistan, even becoming trapped in habits that I would say that, the Western culture adopts, for example, heavy drinking. We don't want to address it, we don't like to think about it, but let's be honest, a lot of our young people do get involved in that, especially the boys. That's obviously detrimental to their own well-being, it doesn't reflect well on parents as well. No one wants to see that their child's, moving away from, good values and morals and principles. But of course, like with anything, it's all about balance. We have to take the good, what we can from this country, what this country offers us, and we have to make the most of it. And we have to make those choices to steer away from the bad things. That's all down to us, the choices that we make. I do want to mention social media. Obviously, that has a huge impact on all young people, regardless of whatever race they are, Christians, Muslims alike. And the age of technology and convenience that we live in, it has a direct impact on our everyday lives. Most of my youth from my church, I don't think they could go a day really without their phones or the internet. For them it's like eating, sleeping. They need their phone. They need to tell their friends what they're doing. They need to go on the internet for whatever reason, YouTube, Facebook, etc. And actually, when Saida came to our church as well, I'm sure you found that as well from the discussions that we had with young children. A lot of them actually did say they felt more British actually than they did Asian. So in some cases you might think maybe nurture has won over nature because of the environment they've lived in, because they've been brought up in this country. They regard themselves as British. If you ask them, who are you, they'd say, I'm British. You know, not even British Asian, just British. And that's not to say that everyone's forgotten their roots. I think a lot of that is because they feel they've been, you know, born and raised in this country. They regard themselves as British, so to speak. But I always say, it doesn't matter how many times you say you're British, you can't change your skin colour. You know, you're still going to be brown. Everyone's going to look at you and know you're Asian. They're going to know where your origins are from. But, you know, a lot of young people have moved away a little bit from tradition. I think that is one of the challenges we face, not just for young people, but as a community. You know, how do we get young people to stay engaged and interested in their own culture and their roots? It's so easy to forget all that when you're living here. You know, you just adopt Western things and you can forget that you're actually a Pakistani living in this country. You're actually a foreigner in this country. You know, as much as you call yourself British, you are still a foreigner. So I think that's something we should be addressing because, I mean, if this is not addressed now, 2 or 3 generations down the line, you know, there will be nothing left of our culture, of our tradition. You know, everything that our children, the future generations will do, will all be Western. You know, we won't have our separate identity any longer. I mean, one of the ways that we've tried to address this in our church, even, our services are actually in Urdu and Punjabi. You know, we had the option, we could join an English or a mixed church, but we said no, we want to start our own service, and it's all in Urdu and Punjabi. Everyone's, you know, welcome to come. And we strictly kept to that. When I run my youth classes, they're actually in English. They prefer that, it's easier for them to understand. But at least they can join in the music, and they do have some understanding. Even when we worship, you know, they do enjoy that. And that keeps them connected with our culture as well. So, you know, not to completely forget their roots. They don't always understand everything that's going on. They do struggle with the language. I don't know if you find that as well. The kids sometimes, "Mununi samajandi," like, you know. Kids, they say, "Talk to me in English." They prefer that. But at least, you know, if they're in an environment where your culture, tradition is embraced, you know, it is going to have an influence on them. It is going to impact them in some way. Another obvious challenge that young Asian Christians, I would say particularly, is even just with their peers as well. I mean, a lot of my youth, or most of their friends, are actually come from Hindu, Sikh and Muslim backgrounds, and sometimes they're the only Christian in the group, you know, but they still want to obviously be connected with other Asians, with other Pakistanis, you know, and sometimes struggles from that can arise. You know, sometimes some small differences, sometimes even to open rebuke. But from my experience, you know, they've held on to their faith, so sometimes they do feel a little bit uncomfortable. Well, I'm the only Christian, I'm the only Pakistani Christian in the group. And it can be hard, you know, especially if you have, for example, a group of Hindu friends and they're talking about their upcoming festivals or something. You know, you feel left out, but you still want to be included. So it can be hard, but, you know, I am proud of them to say that is one of their achievements. That, you know, I've always found they have stood up for their faith, and I think that is really important. Whatever religion you come from, if there's something you believe, why shouldn't you make a stand for it, regardless of what people around you think, if that's a choice you've made? Overall, I do want to say that, you know, we are so blessed to be in this country. I keep emphasising that point because there's some people, you know, what they would give to be in this country to swap that place with you. You know, you could ask, I would say, the majority of Pakistanis in Pakistan now, and if you offered them a ticket to England, they would happily get on the plane and come over here, take your place, you know. So we shouldn't take it for granted that we're here, you know, for young or old. There's so many things, benefits that we get from this country, of course. But obviously we do have to keep in mind, obviously not all the things that we get from this country can always benefit us. But that is, again, our choice, the choices that we make, you know, to take the good, enjoy those benefits, and to stay away from things that might not be so beneficial to us. I can confidently say that the achievements, I believe, do outweigh the challenges that we face as well. The challenges are huge. I'm not undermining them in any way, but I think it is important to remember to keep your focus on where you want it to be. So if you want to overcome those challenges, you stay determined, you will overcome them. It's putting that work in, making the effort, you know, trying to keep them engaged. Too often, you know, we love talking, saying these are the problems, but no one's doing anything. You know, it's very easy to discuss and talk, but who's going to stand up and take action? That's the real question, you know. That's all I really want to say. I'm proud to be a Christian. You know, I treat everyone equally regardless of their race, religion, and just thank you for the time for listening to me.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Nice. Okay, so thank you, Salah. You already have 2 questions. First one coming from Tariq Chaudhry,
Right.
and then
I would like to find out how do you engage Generation Y through church? Because we might be able to replicate that through our mosques. Basically, these are the community assets which we have paid for, and we need to find a way forward to connect them and pass on the message that everybody has been talking today. So we need to get them together. So could you explain me how do we engage
absolutely.
them?
One of the ways, I mean, I'll be very honest with you, I don't know a lot about what the services are like, for example, in mosques, but one of the ways that we address that, we do, for example, plays and dramas. So, for example, we will take a story from the Bible, and if that's the theme of the week, we'll do a play on that. And I make my youth, my kids at church, I would actually make them do it in Urdu or Punjabi. They struggle with the lines for a while, nothing too much, just a few lines here and there, but just that practice, and it keeps them engaged with their culture. And even when we're talking, just sitting with the parents, sometimes after the church service, just in a tea room when it's a social atmosphere, the kids are around there, we've made one room, so, when you're just hearing, the language, being surrounded, it may not be a direct impact, but indirectly you'll see that it does have an influence. So it's, I wouldn't say it's forcing, it's just encouraging to take part in activities where there's some aspect of our culture that's involved. For example, with our plays, I could easily do it in English as well, but I would say, no, let's do this in Urdu or Punjabi. They might struggle with it, but don't give up at the first hurdle. Keep encouraging them. That's the main thing. Whatever way you choose to interact with them, doing activities. Kids like to be hands-on. If their kids were sat here today, half of them probably have fallen asleep by now. They don't like to sit and listen, that's not insulting anyone, but kids, they're hands-on, they're very practical. And with our dramas, obviously when you're acting, there's nothing more practical than that, they're doing things. Or even getting them to help in church in some way, when we're doing cleaning and stuff. Initiating conversation with them, understanding, what their interests are as well.
So you have a Pakistani Christian church,
absolutely.
St. Andrews. Where is that?
That's in Ilford. In Ilford.
Ilford.
Yes.
So, we would like to have an address and come round and visit your service.
Of course, you're more than welcome. Saeeda's actually been. So, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Esther?
Right. Sabah, thank you very much for what you said on our behalf. And I have attended the church services. So, but my question for you is that you have really re-emphasized that we are blessed to be here, and we really are. There are no two opinions about that. However, you have used, for example, drinking as an example of drifting away from our values. First thing, I would like to disagree with you on this, because drinking is part of Pakistani culture as well, though it's not open. And people who, like Hina, as she said that she's from a family where more people are in army and air force, that is not something that people would be shocked about. So my problem with the society is that over there most of the things are hidden and done. However, here we are given more freedom to express ourselves however we want, whether we want to be a fashion designer or a mosque priest, whatever. So I don't think this is really a challenge to a cultural challenge to Pakistanis. And my second question is that if you are saying that we should really hold on to our dual identity, don't you think it will deter us or people over here, the Generation Y in Britain, to really contribute towards either of the communities or both of the communities? What is your take on that?
Thank you, Esther.
Thank you.
Brief comments?
Yeah, firstly, in terms of drinking, that was just one example. I know parents who that is their biggest concern. For example, that's not how they want to bring up their children. And obviously, I know a lot of things are done in secret. Here in Pakistan, it's not so open. Here, because they have that freedom, I mean, a lot of Asian parents will still think they're going against our culture. I'm sure they're very aware that things like that still happen. We hear stories, of pigs going missing. Yet people say no one eats pigs in Pakistan. It's not halal. But where have these, So I mean, a lot of things happen. For example, like that. That was just one example that I know that's affects, for example, my youth and the community that I come from. I mean, there's lots of things in the culture. For example, speaking back to parents, for example, in the English culture, that might be acceptable. Here in our culture, you're expected to respect your elders, and even if they tell you off, you just take it quietly, even if so just little things like that, things that we've adopted from the Western culture.
Good and bad everywhere, in every community.
Yeah. So like I said, it was the choices that we make. What do we want to?
Because you told me to talk here, and then if you are free to
Yeah. I mean, Absolutely. I think the biggest thing that you can do as parents is to set the example yourself. This is the problem. We like to tell our kids, do this, do that, but are you doing it yourself? Kids will learn from what you do, not from what you say. And I think that is the biggest challenge, because obviously our parents, the older generation, they've come from Pakistan. So then they've got, inbuilt into them those understanding that you don't say anything, or, you've been brought up a certain way. And they struggle to get away from that as well and adopt the Western culture as well. So the thing is, we all need to make that change together, and not just, tell younger people, you need to do this, that and the other. We all need to, and that is one of the biggest challenges, that if we want our kids to change, we're going to have to set that example for them first. Sorry, could you repeat your second question? You were saying about it.
I think the holding on to that dual identity, would, in your opinion, would it deter the generation Y to really contribute to either of the nations, or either of the countries, or both of the countries?
Holding on to both identities. I personally, I don't think it is, like, for example, detrimental to them. I think it's only in their benefit. I believe you can make the best of both worlds. For example, I was brought up here, but I still speak Urdu Punjabi. I love curry. I love wearing Asian clothes, for example. And it's your choice of how you keep that balance. And again, you've got to take good things from both. There's plenty of things I disagree with in Pakistan, plenty of things I disagree with in the Western world. But it's the choices that I've made, and I would like to try to pass on to others as well. Take the good that you can. And we're in a privileged position where we've got our background, the good moral, values, etc., homely values, all those nice things that we, like to think of. But then we do have the freedom here as well. And again, it comes down to balance, I think, with anything. It's the choices that we make. But it's an ongoing challenge to change, adopt those changes for everyone and pass that on. But the biggest thing is, I think, acting on it yourself. Kids will learn from that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's quite intriguing perspective. Like it's all about leopard washing its dots, in fact. So even when we stick in here, we become the British or the British Pakistanis, and we continue living there for the next maybe 50 or 100 years, we would still remain a visible minority, because we are visible. We are known that we are not from here. And when you say I'm the British, still, okay, where are you from then? So this is the second question. So that's not going to leave us. And that's why this conversation, this dialogue, and this discourse is important to continue for us and for the next generations. Thank you very much for your insightful comments. And now we are proceeding with the event. We have 2 speakers left. The good news, the last 2 speakers, and these 2 speakers are representing the first generation, because they came to this country as the first immigrant from their particular respective background. One of them is a professional. He's a doctor, and he is highly respected for his professional expertise, for being a fellow of Royal College of Surgeons and several other different awards and qualifications. But at the same time, he brings passion to the field of media, from the medical field, and he managed to set up probably one of the most representative channel for community. That's an internet-based channel which is growing very fast internationally. I'm talking about Dr. Sohail Chuksai, who is going to speak on the issue of identity and how it impacts our professionals and our oncoming generations. So over to Dr. Sohail Chuksai.
Thank you very much. I think I've learned a lot from the speakers today. It's great insight, very diverse insight. My purpose of talking today is to raise awareness and add to your existing knowledge on a very important subject, that is the negative identity. Because if you don't have a commitment to an identity, you're a prey to negative identity, and that's one reason of crimes, drugs, and also the procrastination. People lose sight of their career. So I want to take you through a small conversation, I would say, not a lecture, that how can identity develop? What is the process of formation of identity? We have a wonderful research worker here. I think he would know more Eric Erikson than anybody else here. In 1980s, he coined the term identity crisis. He said when you have a very intense retrospective analysis of yourself, you become unsure of your beliefs you held for years. And then you certainly feel, who am I? And then you lose the sight of your role as well. You don't know what you're doing. Is that a purposeful thing? Are you going to carry it on? Are you going to stop it? Now, why this happens, why this provocation of introspective happens, it's again a different question, but I want to take you through the very important stage of life when the identity is formed. And that is, I think, the keystone for success in life, for not only professional life, for personal life. You know, in this country, in many countries, the rate of personal life failure is one of the behind underpinning reason is loss of identity. So let me take you through this. This work of Erik Erikson in 1970s was enforced by Marcia, a very wonderful psychosocial development psychologist. You know, Sigmund Freud, he did same theory on the identity crisis, but it was more psychosexual analysis, whereas the ego-based identity was formed by Marcia and this Erik Erikson. Now what he said was that you can have one of the 4 statuses of identity. You can be one of the 4 individuals. One is that you are in the stage of foreclosure. Now foreclosure, which means that you are committed to identity, fine. But you haven't had chance to explore the alternatives. So you know what you are, you're happy, but you're vulnerable. The moment there is a point of change in your life, you start doubting yourself. Was it better? Is that truth or that one? Because you haven't explored the identity. Your beliefs are taught by parents, the society, the schooling, and then you change situation. And then you start questioning yourself. So that is foreclosure. Happy state, but dangerous one. The next is the moratorium stage, when you're changing, you're thinking, you're open-minded, you're discussing everything. Faith, personal goals, beliefs, ideas, academics, personal life. Because you're open to ideas, and then you become a person after that research, after that exploration. That is the stage of moratorium. It can stay all your life, or it can finish in few months or years, depending on how thoughtful, how insightful you are. So you can be in stage of moratorium all your life, or you can culminate that at a point and reach the stage of third one, which is identity achievement. Now that is a state when you walk without being conscious. You don't care where your right hand is because you're sure of your beliefs. You know what you are. You talk without fabrication. You walk without alteration. You wear what you like. You're at ease. You're smiling without asking to smile because you're at ease. Now that is the stage of identity achievement. This is a very important point, because if you don't understand that, you won't understand the next part. The next part is crucial, the negative identity. Now, just imagine a guy, you may be able to connect this to many people around our society, sometimes in our families, around us, that a person who doesn't care about having an identity is not committed, he or she is not committed, and he or she doesn't care. So that person could be happy, but that person can be victim to negative identity. That's called identity diffusion. When your role is not clear, and suddenly when there is a point of change in life, you become one of the 2 persons. Either you take crime, drugs, because you want to assert your identity. At that time, you've gone through that stage of development. You're standing blank. All you want to do is exert yourself. And how you do it? If you're a very strong, abrupt person, you take drugs, crimes, because you feel you've got subordinates. You can rule them. Or you go into the stage of procrastination. Now that's very important again. Procrastination is when you are delaying things. Your priorities are wrong. You are doing things for pleasure, not for goal achievement. You're leaving everything at the last. You're losing concentration so quickly. Now that could be a physical disorder, hyperactivity syndrome. But if that's not the physical side, then it is a purely psychosocial development flaw, which we are all responsible for as parents. If we didn't pick it up, and now we say, why? We have to have knowledge of that to prevent this happening. So all the parents, listen that carefully. Negative identity is because of identity diffusion. It could be around us. We must protect that. Now, how to pick it up? It's important that the conversation between your family members, your friends, your people around you, your employees, your staff members, that they are not focusing, let's say, on their work. You have to give them a set number of tasks, and only then they can perform. If you leave them on their own, they will do things for pleasure. They're distracted so easily. How can they be future leaders? That stage goes on, and they will stay like that. And I think somebody mentioned that there are very low achievement rate of Pakistanis. One reason is identity crisis. There's no lack of resources here. You're getting free schooling. Okay, you're getting free schooling. You get open merit to go to universities. So why we get down to that point, it's that we don't pick up the identity diffusion, which is the role. Your role is not defined. You don't help your kids. So I think this is one area where I wanted to really emphasize. I wanted to say that all the conversations today are wonderful. I have great regard for that. And they all point towards this reason. What can we do now? So I want to just add a solution or a strategy to the comments and the discussion we had. That what is our next step? When we go home, what do we take from here? We take a strategy to prevent negative identity, because that is bound to decrease the productivity. And I think it's important that, the provocation to identity crisis, when does that happen? When there's a point of change in life. When you leave your country, when someone very close to you dies, when there's the end of marriage, there's a new relationship, there's a change of job. These are the points you need to watch. Because if at that point there's a change in the person, that person is vulnerable. That person is either in the stage of foreclosure or moratorium. A person with identity achievement will quickly adjust. So that person who is having at point of change is showing signs of vulnerability, I think that person needs help. And I think it's a very, very well-known theory. I'm not going to take you into that theory. There are 4 points. How can you prevent people from going into that stage? The first point is extinction. That don't provoke the behavior which causes the other person to react. Like if he gets very angry on discussing his academic or her academic careers, don't discuss that. Let the person grow to that point. So don't provoke the person to get that person labeled as an aggressive person, because the more he does that, the more people will react to that person. The more people will react, the more he or she will believe, I am like this. So don't provoke. It's called extinction. Don't provoke the thing which can make a person vulnerable. And then the peer pressure, of course. I think somebody mentioned that. We need to make sure the peers don't discourage, don't label. Don't label, that's the word. Please do not label someone as he's a bad guy, he's a fool. He or she is a fool. No, nobody's fool. Nobody's fool. And the teachers have the same responsibility. A teacher should say, in my class, there is no fool. Everybody is intelligent. You just have to express it. Some people express it and some don't. And I think all these things, they all matter to us. Let's take something from this lecture. I feel that my purpose of talking today was precisely this. Thank you very much for listening with patience. Thank you.
Thank you very much for very insightful comments. And it's very interesting perspective that we have Muslims, Pakistanis talking about identity of being a British Pakistani as a Muslim. At the same time, Christian Pakistanis talking about their identity and keeping it and saving it. We have a question coming on the same particular angle. It's Falak from Leicester. And the question is, how can the British Pakistanis avoid losing out their national identity as a Pakistani? So once again, I think it's one of the most important concerns that this is being repeated in 3, 4, 5 questions already as well. So as Dr. Suksai just touched this particular topic, and he could also sum up Pakistanis who are Muslim Pakistanis and Christian Pakistanis, their perspective as well. So we invite him to answer the question.
I think a lot has been said about this topic, that we take best from both. You know, people say that common thing, my child, how can he learn 2 languages? Kids learn. 3 languages, 4 languages. So there is a capacity. We are privileged that we have exposure to both cultures. You enjoy the curry and you enjoy fish and chips. It's great. You enjoy trouser, you enjoy your shalwar kameez. So let's enjoy the privilege rather than looking negative at it. The IQ has the potential for you to grow. Let's take this opportunity. And my answer to this question is, let's call this an opportunity to learn rather than a negative point. Please think of that.
Thank you.
Can I add something to this, please?
Yeah.
Just very brief.
Is it a comment or question?
No, just a brief comment to the question, which you received from the internet, and adding on to what Dr. Chimtai just mentioned. Basically, I think the problem is if we do not become our children's friends, we won't know how or where are they going. Secondly, if we can afford it, the best thing is to take the children to Pakistan even once or even twice a year. Try and stop English at the doorstep. I know it's difficult. It's easier said than done. I know that because I'm going through that myself. But to be honest, we have Sabah who's, Sabah Masih, who gave a very good answer, and she speaks perfect Urdu, Punjabi, and English.
Yeah.
Right? That should be the kind of order we have in our homes, in our culture, in society at large. Try and meet other people as well of the same culture, same religion. And of course, whether you're a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim, you're still a Pakistani. And I know very, very great people like Group Captain Peter Christie, who was my father's great friend. And he fought in the 65 war and the 71 war. And he got Sidara Jurat, which is the second highest award in Pakistan. And so many other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Bud. Right, we are almost reaching the end of this entire evening. And I would invite the co-chairman, World Congress of Overseas Pakistanis, Syed Qamar Raza, for his presidential comments summing up all this conversation. But before that, if we could have some comments from other members of Board of Governors who are present here. I would request if Majid Chaudhry, General Secretary, World Congress of Overseas Pakistanis from the United Kingdom, would like to share his insight on this particular event.
I just wanted to say thank you very much to be here and provide us an opportunity to be with you. And it's a great occasion for myself. I would say that to learn a lot from you and to have the insight to the great depth of it about identity crisis we'll be discussing and a lot of other things. So this is a great opportunity for me to learn from you. I'm here to listen to most of you who are speaking here, and I think I would say thank you again to provide me this opportunity to learn from you. And, that's all. Thank you.
Well, yes, I would say something. It was great to be here today, and I was invited by my daughter. Was fairly busy, but she said, no, you must come and join us and see how great work WCOP are doing. And I said, I'm already part of WCOP, but that's great to hear from you. Coming back to the topic of today, the Y generation, we've talked about issues, problems, concerns, but we really haven't talked about the solution. What are we going to take home today with us? Like Dr. Saab said, it was great to hear you, Sabaji, for saying that how you engage your youth. We would like to see that and replicate that. We have assets in this part of the world which are worth billions. And we have paid through our own, through our own membership. But we are not utilizing it. Those assets are being utilized once a week for 2 hours, where the congregation takes place on Friday. Rest of the time, I believe we need to address this. I think WCOP should take this issue up to start utilizing that space that is available to us to bring the Y generation in there and make a place for the O generation. You know, there is no such thing as O generation, but we just coined the term today. I'm from the O generation, so that we could interact and take this train forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Tariq Saab is claiming O generation, but in fact, as far as I know, Tariq Saab is still Y generation.
You're very kind, Thomas.
And honestly, we are proud, and this is our privilege. You are part of WCOP, and we take advantage of your experience and your ability to be honest.
We have Najib Khan Sahib, who is member board of governors. Right. Okay. No, it's fine. Mr. Sajid Atta Khan, would you like to have a comment?
I think she wanted to say something.
I was just trying to say that only teaching Urdu is not going to resolve the problem. We have to, as other speakers said, we need to set a role model and introduce cultural activities to tell our children how it is in Pakistan. We can take them to Pakistan, but at the same time we can spare some time here and spend that flight money here and give them some activities here and teach them, and yes, set an example for them that how true Muslim can be and how true Pakistani culture can be depicted here. So language is part of it, but I think it's broader than only teaching them Urdu.
Yeah. So we have to walk our talk, which is more important than only language. Thank you very much for the insightful comment. And when Tariq Chalji said about the solutions, in fact, this is the second seminar of this series. We have 4 more seminars coming up at London School of Economics, Greenwich University, and University of Oxford. And then in the end, we are going to print a working paper based on all those solutions and suggestions and discussions, so that we can make something out of it. So certainly this entire exercise will be beneficial. Now, reaching to the final talk by co-chairman of World Congress of Overseas Pakistanis, Sayyid Qamar Raza is Generation O or Generation Y. We're just going to figure it out once he speaks. But certainly he's going to, in fact, become a bridge between both of them. He was the first one to come to this country and at the same time become a success story. And let's listen how he plans to take this debate forward. Let's give him a big hand.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Honorable Secretary General Majid Chaudhry Saab, Najib Khan Saab, Sajid Atta Khan Saab, Tariq Chaudhry Saab, Dr. Sohail Chuktai Saab, and Dr. Arif Malik Saab, respected speakers and audience, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. I'm very grateful for your presence and value addition to the important debate on the future of British Pakistani diaspora in the UK. World Congress of Overseas Pakistanis initiated the series of debates from Cambridge University in March this year. This is the second debate of the series, and the next event will be conducted at LSE, City University, Greenwich University, and the final at University of Oxford. We hosted this series to draw attention to the issues of the next generations of the British Pakistani diaspora, with the aim to add to the exciting knowledge and insight based on the intergenerational perspectives, where quite little work has been done so far. We also wanted to provide an opportunity to the younger British Pakistanis generation to express their concerns, issues, ideals, and fears. It is essential to provide a platform for the first, second, and third generation of the diaspora to have dialogues on the issue of importance. With all the good news regarding achievement of diaspora, the real vital concern in the terms of academic achievement, identity, integration, and inclusion, there seems to be disconnect that must be bridged. As Roosevelt said, the only thing we need to fear is the fear itself. So we could only brave these challenges by looking into their eyes and engaging with it. Such an interaction provides a window to understand the lack of linguistic and cultural transfers in the coming generation and the much hyped alienation from parental roots and figure out antidote if it's happening. It is the same time one premier objective is to motivate and inspire the younger generation to achieve more academic, entrepreneurship and politics, where they have a lot of success stories available from their preceding generation. As we see, we heard very interesting point of views and perceptions from academic, professionals, political and achievement perspectives. We have heartening stories of success like Sir Anwar Pervez, Baroness Warsi, James Khan, and we just heard Rabia Bhatti, youngest counselor. There are a lot more names, but these names always come up first, you know. However, we could clearly see, but does not stop there. One point which was raised, and I would agree, that the first generation did not plan much in regards to the second and the third generation. As someone already pointed out, the first generation was kind of stuck between staying in the UK and going back to Pakistan, which affected its outlook at the long-term scenario. Now, as I see, things have changed a lot. As for myself, I see the Great Britain is my country, a country where my dreams came true. I hold it so close to my heart. It is a country of my future generation. It is a country for which I could live and die. And I mean it. Now, this is a very clear perspective which has developed in the last 1 or 2 decades. Perhaps it is turning point which would cast its shadow in the long run. As the founder and co-chairman of the World Congress of Overseas Pakistanis, I'm here not to talk about the problems, but of the solutions. Today's event is an initiative in the same direction. In first place, we want to ascertain the challenges faced by our next generation through such kind of dialogues and intensive research, and then interact with the movers and shakers and the policy makers in the United Kingdom for positively influence policies in that direction. It is high time we provide the leadership to our generations and get them out of the confusion in terms of identity and status. WCOP has organized landmark events starting from integration dinner to Christmas dinner to move out from the same confusion. As you all know, this is the first time at national level we celebrate Christmas dinner, you know, where relevant minister and the Archbishop of Canterbury office was involved, and this was, I think, first step towards. The clear message is that could proudly contribute to the mainstream society as the British Pakistanis, and we are not endangered species. However, to make this contribution, we have to work twice as harder as native population. Attain more, be more patient and emotionally resilient. And we must challenge the preachers of the hate who want to build tall walls among the communities. WCOP would continue promoting such a dialogues, interaction, endeavors with could compete and inspire each other. And it would only happen when we all join hands together through constructive criticism and add value to each other's lives. And I'm really grateful all of you. You spare your time and we discuss these issues. I can see if you look at it at this face, you can't see you are achieving something, but at least we are throwing points in front of you. We start discuss these issues, and slowly we are growing, and we are moving towards where we want to be and where we should be, you know. So I'm really grateful and honored you all take part of this event and to make this success. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. And those of you who are interested to become members of WCOP, you could have the membership forms from us. And yes, when we're summing up tonight's or today's event, we have something positive coming up, and that is that we could be Pakistanis. At the same time, we could be proud British, and we could be proud Pakistanis. We could be proud Muslim Pakistanis. We could be proud Christian Pakistanis. And we could live with the best of both the worlds. I think this is one of the takeaways, and we take the same message home. While we take pride in our achievements, at the same time, we are preparing our next generations to, in fact, create further success stories. So thank you very much for all of you.